Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
Mike, appreciate the time as always. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. There's a lot of different places we could start with the New Orleans Saints this week, but I feel like we kind of have to start with Derek Carr. He was back out at practice today. How did he look?
Well, I mean, if we're just judging participation, activity level, body language, how well he's moving around, I mean, he looks like a player who's going to play this week. I mean, the only other factor is the fact that he's had 2 concussions in less than a month. I don't know how that affects if they're stricter about passing someone through the concussion protocol, if it makes it harder for him to pass through the concussion protocol. I mean, I know that for the most part, guys usually miss a week when they suffer a concussion. Chris Olave didn't recently. It doesn't always work that way, but so I thought the odds were going to be stacked against him early in the week, but based on his participation level, I think there's a good chance he plays, and it certainly seems like neither the shoulder nor the rib injury would be what keeps him out.
Now, so with him being limited, he is still in the protocol right now, correct?
He is. He has not passed all the. Yeah, you have tests that you have to pass. You have to meet with an independent neurologist after you've gone through practices before you're cleared. And so he has not passed all of those steps yet. So as of now, he is participating in practice, but has not cleared all of the tests that they put the players through.
What? I know Dennis Allen was asked about it, about the level of concern, and you touched on it there too, because it is 2 concussions in 3 games. And DA, was, well, it's up to the medical folks, and John Amos does a great job and all of that. Do you sense a heightened concern there around Carr, especially given what we've seen in the past couple of seasons in the NFL with concussions and multiple concussions?
Yeah, I mean, I know they take this stuff seriously. So I would think so, yes. I would think they want to be extra cautious, but I'm sure they have protocols and standards in place for good reason. And if he meets every measure and he feels well and he's testing well and everything seems right, I mean, we've seen players play in a week before. I don't think that's the norm, but I think it's entirely possible, and I think they will treat it very seriously.
Derek Carr has made a habit of that this year of getting knocked out of a game and being back with the AC joint. He didn't.
Concussions aren't a toughness issue, obviously, right. but anything that is, we've seen that is one thing that he has proven is he will fight through whatever he can possibly fight through.
One more on the injury front about Carr, because of what I just kind of mentioned, him being knocked out of 3 separate games this year, and obviously the AC joint, 2 concussions, but also the rib. So it's been a multitude of things. Is there something that you've maybe noticed in him playing in the game that is making him more susceptible to the injury? I mean, that's 3 times. That's a lot. Is it maybe holding onto the ball too long, or is it? I mean, because look, when Jameis goes in there,
I mean, his sack totals aren't very high. They've never been super high in his career. But yeah, of course, there are situations where he's held on to the ball too long this year. I think maybe the shoulder in particular could be a little more vulnerable to being re-injured if it's going to hit against the turf really hard. Maybe that's something he's going to have to manage all year long. So there might be some common thread, but for the most part, the last 2 were just 2 hellacious hits that probably might have knocked anyone out of a game.
I hate to make this whole thing about injuries, but it's a lengthy injury report, and Chris Olave.
It really is.
Chris Olave popped up on that today, and it is just illness. But I mean, is there anything you can tell us there? Are they expecting him potentially?
No, all I know is illness. Before COVID entered our world, illness on a Thursday didn't used to be any risk that a player wasn't going to play on Sunday. So I would think this is a case where we're going to see him back by Friday or Saturday, and he's going to be okay. That is usually what happens with illness, but obviously I don't know that for a fact.
All right, let's talk defense, because that's been an issue. There's been plenty for the Saints, but defense has been an issue, and specifically rush defense. Mike, 370 rush yards given up in the 2 games since the bye. The days of us lauding the Saints' rush defense and not allowing 100-yard rushers, that feels like such a distant memory.
Feels like a long time ago.
Long time ago. It's been a lot of different ways. How confident are you in the rush defense this week, where I know the Panthers' offense hasn't been great, but they have been able to run the ball a little bit, and Malcolm Roach is now on IR?
Well, yeah. I mean, how confident am I in the Saints' rush defense? I've lost confidence over the last couple of weeks. How can you not? I mean, that Atlanta game in particular, that's such a one-dimensional team that does not want their quarterback to have to play. Atlanta would be fine if Desmond Ridder threw the ball 0 times. They want to run on every down. And you have to go in that game and say, we're not going to let you run. And we're going to put 8 in the box. And you're going to keep running, and we're going to keep stopping you. And they couldn't. They let Atlanta run at the beginning. They let Atlanta run for the entire fourth quarter. It was really disturbing. And then, Detroit had success running the ball, too. They were better against Detroit. Obviously, that flurry at the beginning of the game, but then they settled in and they played pretty good defense. But, yeah, I mean, this run defense is not what it used to be. This defensive line, there's questions about the depth and the talent, and you mentioned it. Malcolm Roach is out, and Cam Jordan is limited. And Pete Werner looks like he's coming back. We've seen him practice, but he's dealing with an injury. So, no, it's definitely a concern now. I don't think Carolina's as good at running the ball as Atlanta is, or as Detroit is. So I think the Saints can win for that reason. And it's another game where they're going to have to, because this is another game where you want to stop the run and not make things comfortable for them and say, nope, we want to make you put this game in Bryce Young's hands.
Is it a must-win for the Saints? I mean, I know mathematically.
Yeah. I mean, my headline on my story today, and I listed all the reasons why and all the ramifications about Dennis Allen's future and Derek Carr's future, and if you are trying to make the playoffs this year, what the playoff ramifications are. But for every no matter which of those paths you're talking about, yes, home game against the 1-11 team, after kind of the humiliation of what we saw with the fans and the Lions fans in the Dome last week, the Saints fans who are selling their tickets and showing apathy, the Saints fans who were there and booed. You can't lose this game. You can't. I mean, I think you can't lose this game because you're officially out of the playoffs. Not officially, but basically officially out of the playoffs if you lose this game. And I think long-term job ramifications are at stake if you lose this game.
All right, so I did obviously want to touch on Dennis Allen and that. I guess now is as good of a time as any to do that. One thing that's been brought up, I know. Look, Mickey Loomis addressed it on his coach's show that or radio show that he does with Mike Hoss about the state of the locker room. Do you think that Dennis Allen has lost the locker room?
I don't think he's lost the locker room, and Mickey Loomis dismissed that really with a lot of disdain. Any suggestion that the team has quit, that the team would mutiny, the team would sabotage, and we saw it. We saw when they were down 21-0, and if there was ever a time that the team was going to be like, when can I get on my vacation? That doesn't typically happen in the NFL anyway. No matter what team these guys are playing for, they want to put on good film. They want to win. They want to win for each other. So, no, he hasn't lost him in that sense. But is confidence waning that he can get the job done, that they have the right offense in place, that they have the right system in place, that they have the right plan in place? I mean, it's natural for confidence to wane when you haven't won a game in a month. And you're just not seeing the team get better, and you're not seeing plans working. So that part of it is absolutely fair to wonder, is does this team, I think buy-in is a very important commodity in all of professional sports. Does the team believe as strongly today that they're going to go in and win a game as they probably did at the beginning of the season, or as they used to back in the 12-4 seasons? I think of course not. So it's a constant battle. Just having that, they say it all the time. It was an old Sean Payton line. It was an old Bill Parcells line. Dennis Allen's used it. Confidence is born out of demonstrated ability. They haven't demonstrated a lot.
No, no, they haven't. That's for sure. So, okay, you had said when we're talking about the must win for long-term job ramifications, you have to win this game. So if that's the case, how hot is Dennis Allen's seat right now currently going into this game?
Mickey Loomis has expressed a lot of confidence in him continuously. There's a lot of things that he hadn't pinned on him, especially last year. A lot of injuries this year, a lot of offensive issues. A belief in him that's built over knowing him for a long, long time. And so he's shown some patience. He believes in stability. He believes in continuity. Those are things that are important to him. But I think the last 3 weeks have changed a lot. I mean, this is me putting myself in the shoes of Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson, and not anything that I've heard from them. But I think this stretch, the Minnesota loss, the Atlanta loss, and the Detroit loss, was maybe the worst 3-game stretch, considering all the factors. What was at stake? They went into that stretch pretty healthy, even though they've been battling injuries lately. And I think they're not playing better. I think in the Minnesota-Atlanta games and the first quarter of the Detroit game, they were actually playing worse. And that fan apathy that we saw with all the Lions jerseys in the Superdome, I think that has to weigh on you. So I wrote about it today. I mean, I think there's other factors. How do they look at the end of the season? What are players and assistant coaches telling them behind closed doors? But I think the math formula might be as simple as I think he saves his job if he wins this division, because to win this division, you might have to finish 4-1. And that would mean probably some good football down the stretch. But if they miss the playoffs for the second straight year where an 8-win team or a 9-win team wins the NFC South, I don't know. I think the seat's probably very hot.
Mike Triplett on Twitter at Mike Triplett, of course, neworleans.football with us on AFR every single week. Last one, Mike. Are they going to win Sunday? Please tell me they're going to win Sunday.
I mean, I'd like to say yes.
Oh no.
and I'm going to pick them to win, but it's a bad time for the injury report to look like this.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, we've seen defensive line problems, and now you've got a limited Cam Jordan and no Malcolm Roach. We've seen secondary problems, and now Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus May are on IR. We've seen offensive problems, and now Michael Thomas and Rashid Shaheed are hurt, and we don't know who's going to play quarterback. So they're not going in at their peak. But yeah, they sure better win this game.
I really hope they win this game. That's going to be a very interesting Monday if they don't. But look, that's why they play the game. They'll do that at noon in the Dome on Sunday. Mike, we appreciate the time, as always, for another week, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks as always.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.